Katie Sutton, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Let's talk about the 2024 edition of the Festival of Miles, and then we can kind of go back in time and fill out the history of this extraordinary event and meet. What are your thoughts coming into 2024? Every year it gets better. You guys say it, and it is certainly true. How you feeling 2 weeks out?
It is going to be insane. I mean, our race director, Tim Cornell, has been talking to, I feel like, every runner in the country. So it's exciting, especially on the girls' side. The girls' race is going to be so fast and so exciting. So we're really excited about that. But I also am just so thrilled with how many people want to be involved. I swear a new 407, 408 boy enters every day. And I'm like, how can there be so many? And it's just running's, it's a great year for running. So we hope as many as possible are going to be in St. Louis for the event.
I talked to Jackson Higgens on the podcast this past weekend. We were kind of reflecting on his senior year last year, and something in those podcasts with Jackson, Connor Simeon, all those guys was this kind of humble, but probably not humble. Like they would brag on their class so much, and they were like, "This is the best class we've ever seen in high school history, and you're never going to see another one." And now, when talking to them this year, they're kind of biting their tongue, like, "I didn't say that." It is quite crazy that 4 kids broke 4 in the same race last year. Most insane 4 minutes of my life. And we're looking at potentially the same, if not more. What's your take on the excitement that you had last year? And were you in the same boat as me and others where it was like, we're never going to see this again? And then looks like we might.
Yeah, I think so because I think with those kids too, they were so dynamic, so excited, and they threw it out there like, we are doing this and we're doing this tonight in St. Louis. So that, I think that built some excitement around it. I will say what's so exciting is we have actually heard this from athletes. We don't say this, but we have heard that the athletes say, hey, if you want to call yourself the mile champion, you go to Festival of Miles. And that's because some of these other meets, some people run the 2 mile, the 800, stuff like that. And so I love that how concentrated it is. And that just makes it exciting. People go all out. It's also an exciting atmosphere. I think it's easy to get hyped. We pack the house. I would say there's 3,000 people there screaming their heads off on a random Thursday night. We also have the best DJ in St. Louis there. And he's an endurance athlete himself, so he gets it. So he knows how to build the excitement as the races go on. It's loud, it's exciting. And we try to set them up to run fast, and we just want them to do the best they can. So
what do you think in recollection of the history of the meet, which we'll get into in a minute? Why do you think this has become the race where people come to run a fast mile? Like, I think you kind of alluded to this with other national meets. You never really know what you're going to get at a Brooks PR or Nike Outdoor at Nationals, at least in terms of talking about the high school specific races. They're championship style races. Sometimes they're fast, other times they're jog fest, and then the race really comes down to the last 400. These races, kids show up to PR, but not just to PR, a lot of times at a shot at history, breaking 4. Simeon and Connor threw out Alan Webb's record last year. Eric Sawinski tried to pace them to the promised land. Why do you think this race has become the race where you show up to create history, quite frankly?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we try to set up the races to where they can do that. So we get a rabbit. We try to get really good rabbits. We try to tell them, what we want the field to go through in, and they've always done a really good job for us. So there's that. It's also, just the whole atmosphere. We make it to where the environment's going to make them run fast. So that's good. And I also feel like it comes at a really good time in the season. So, we're here in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm from Missouri. We set it up to where for the high school kids, it's right after our state meet. So those kids are in shape. They get a few days to recover and they just go. And so we find that with a lot of the state meets are that weekend before. So it's just a great time. And they don't have to worry about kind of all the other stuff. I mean, they don't have to worry about another event. They don't have to worry about a relay. They don't have to worry about, what goes wrong if they, blow the race type thing. It's just go and see what happens. So
I'm a younger fan in the sport, so correct me if I'm wrong here. I do know it's gotten a lot of coverage over the years, and many people have broken 4, like Grant Fisher way back in the day. But I think 2 years ago, when Gary Martin and Connor Burns both broke 4 in the mile, same race, that was when I feel like a Festival of Miles started to get a lot of coverage. And then I think last year was unprecedented. And I think this year is similar feeling to last year. going back to like year one of Festival of Miles, if we sat down with that version of Katie and told her what 2023 and 2024 would look like, would you think you would have made it this far, not just in terms of the meet surviving, but how successful it's been throughout the years and continue to grow?
No, absolutely not. It was the first redemption, or the first edition was in 2008. It was in April. It was after a JV meet at St. Louis University High. And we really put it together because we had a local athlete at St. Louis University. She was a miler, and she was in a tragic car accident. And she actually spent, I think, 6 weeks in a coma. And we're all close. We're a really close-knit group. And so we thought, well, how can we raise money for her? Well, she's a miler. Let's not put on a 5K. Let's do this race. And as some people may know, Ben Rosario from St. Louis, he was one of the founders, if you will. And we're like, well, let's see what happens. Let's see if anyone can run real fast. And we had one guy that ran with us who we thought might could break 4. So we just threw it out there. And we raised a good amount of money. People had fun with it. And so it wasn't even a thing back then. So just that it stuck up. And we've had some, I don't want to say hard years, but we are 100% volunteer run. No one makes money doing this. We all have other jobs. I am on my lunch break right now talking to you. So it's, there were times where we're not really sure how we're going to pull this off. And then my predecessor, Carter Snow, who was one of those original people to put the meet together, worked really hard to get HOKA on board. And we just realized we needed some money, for lack of better terms, and we needed support. And HOKA has been the most amazing partner. So bringing them on has gotten it to where it is. So we're really excited to be working with them.
At the core, I mean, what started this all was having a why and a mission so much bigger than kids running fast times in the mile. Can you speak to the athlete in need aspect of this meet? You mentioned it year one. Can you talk about it, how it relates to the 2024 edition, and how you guys are helping out Jack, and just why that's important to you and the Festival of Miles team?
Absolutely. So our mission statement is we have 2 missions, is to help an athlete in need and to promote the sport of track and field. And anytime we stray from that, we try to get ourselves back on track. But I think that's what makes us different. Our entire gate, so anyone that comes in to our meet, and it's only $10, $5 for high schoolers, all of that money goes to our athlete in need. And this year, we are supporting a local high school student who's battling cancer. He's battling bone cancer and lung cancer. He's an athlete here. He goes to Vianney High School. And we are going to try to get as much money as possible to support them. I think we've had so many amazing athletes in need in the years past. And sort of to show how close of a group we are and how this all works is Jack was nominated by a community member, and we supported her sister several years ago. So I think they know how impactful it can be. So that's why we try to get as many people in the gate as possible. And you can donate online too, and all that money will go directly to him and his family.
Something I'm curious to hear about, obviously the roots of this meet are in St. Louis, but I was truly blown away by how perfect this facility was. Like, I mean, I've been to Hayward Field. If I could choose a race between Hayward Field and St. Louis University High?
Yep, St. Louis University High.
They call it like SLO, right?
SLU.
Okay,
SLU
there
High.
we go. There we go. SLU High. I would pick SLU High. Like, it is the perfect atmosphere for racing. And it's how I describe it to people who have never been there is it's like just big enough that you can pack a lot of people, but also just small enough that it is overflowing and you feel like you're in the biggest crowd ever. How'd you guys decide on this venue, and why has it stayed here throughout the years? And what do you think makes this venue so special?
Yeah, so one of those core founding members was Joe Porter, who is the head coach at St. Louis University High. And he has been a partner in this the entire time. So their school welcomes us. They allow us to use that facility, and they really celebrate what we do. So there's really no place I don't think there's any other place in St. Louis we could do it. Every once in a while, we'll get someone who's like, why aren't you turning this into a huge distance event? And, go to a college with a steeplechase pit. And we're like, no, we're the Festival of Miles. So it's just great. And for those who haven't been there, there's a big brick wall around the far turn. And people get there early to sit on top of that, which kind of freaks me out because I don't want them to fall off. But people get there early to get their seats. We've filled up the back stretch more and more as the years have gone on, which the way it's set up, people with little kids love it because you can go on that backstretch and kids run around. There's a fence, so they're not going to get in the race. They're just going to have a blast. So we make it very family friendly. So there's not a bad seat in the house, in my opinion.
You took me back to the origins of it in year one. Can you kind of take me through? Actually, let me ask you this. Was there a year in the history of the meet since 2008 that you got indication that it could be what it is today? Was there a year where you got an athlete or someone ran something historic where you thought, man, this is shaping up to be bigger than I thought it would ever turn out to be?
Oh, gee, 1 year. I don't know if there's 1 year, but the second year we did it, we were still barely a thing. Unfortunately, there was another athlete at St. Louis Junior High who had a medical accident, and we were like, okay, we can help him. Why don't we just do this again? We did this before. And we're putting together the meet, and all of a sudden we get a message from Leo Manzano's coach. And he's like, hey, he wants to run the Festival of Miles. And we're like, what? So Leo came. And let me tell you, Leo has hundreds of fans in St. Louis because of that. He was so gracious. He came, he put on a show, ran amazing, and it was great with the fans, autographs and whatnot. And so then we're like, okay, there's something here that people want and they want to see, both from the athlete side and from the spectator side. So if you look through our list of athletes who've run there, I mean, just to name a few, Amos Bartlesmeyer, who's a St. Louis kid. I think he won the high school champ race in 2012. We've got Emily Sisson, Taylor Werner, Colleen Quigley, Brandon Miller. And so if you're a Brandon Miller fan, he is he ran it at when he was in middle school. But then moving outside of locals, we've had obviously Grant Fisher, Morgan McDonald ran it, and now we Nick Willis, Chrissy Gear, Olin Hacker this last year. So Lindsay Butterworth, I don't know if you know her, a Canadian athlete, and she ran it and won it, I think, 3 or 4 years in a row. So we've just brought in some great talent, and it's also been fun because I do a lot of the stats for the race too, and sort of historical stats, and I'll look through our list. And, you see Connor Burns running it as a middle schooler. So we get to see them come and move up. And now we even have people who come back and bring their kids. We have one guy who ran it the first 2 races. And now he's a college coach, and he comes back and brings his kids, and his kids run the kids race. So it's become quite a tradition.
Yeah, this truly, it is remarkable, I think, to see the kids who run it throughout the years who progressively get better. 3 kids in my mind. One, Connor, you mentioned middle school, and then high school, ended up breaking 4 minutes in the mile. And then last year he didn't have the best race of his life, but he pulled a lot of those guys along and kind of acted as a second pacer. And then Jackson Highes, he won the high school boys mile when Connor broke 4, because Connor was in the pro field, and then came back, broke 4 the next year. And then a storyline that I am so excited to follow along is, I think Clay Shively ran sophomore year. Last year he ran 4 flat point something and change. And this year comes back as a senior. It certainly feels like Jackson Highes type material coming back to break 4. How cool has that been to see the legacy of the meet, where it's not one-offs. It's not people come and they run once. It's like kids come, they run here, and they're like, I'm going to run here every year as much as I can until my time in high school is up.
Yeah, it's fun, and we even have some come back and make the pro race. We love seeing that. We love that we can be part of their development, especially on the girls' side. I mean, the girls' side, Tatum David. The first time I saw her run is she showed up at Festival of Miles as a junior high girl, and she was in the junior high sort of like select race. So it's on the track. It's not one where we run a kind of like a road race for most of the kids' race. And she took off like a rocket. And I was like, who is this girl? She soloed a sub 5, and she was in 8th grade. And I was like, all right, we're keeping tabs on her. And she's from a tiny town in Illinois. And, she came back. Yes, she came back last year and ran that pro race. And she is our record holder. So, yeah, I think on both the guys and girls side, we're seeing that. The Humphrey girls are coming back. Charlotte Bell. We're just doing, there's just a great crew that are coming back. So we're going to get to watch them. And one thing this might be a good time to mention it is, we did notice this. One of the things we struggled with as a group is, this was such a local grassroots event. And we have all these great Missouri kids, but because we've got kids coming from all over the country and we try to keep it small and short and quick, we weren't getting our local people weren't always making the races. So this year is the first time we're having the Missouri Miles, and we are possibly more excited about that than anything. So that's going to be, I mean, if you want to be the Missouri champion, come to Festival of Miles.
You mentioned you hear from like another 406, 407 kid every single day, it feels like. Okay. I remember even last year, it was in talking with HOKA and doing the podcast series with Connor and Simeon, so being more involved with the meet. It was like, I wouldn't say a struggle, but there were some kids that it was a fight to get them to come to the race with the, I mean, unfortunately, I feel like, or maybe it's a positive, depending on your take on this. A lot of kids with when they get fast, they get so selective with where they run and when they run and all of that. I remember last year, a lot more kids were signing up, but the top kids, it was still a little bit of a struggle to get the field together to be what it was, which was excellent how it came together. This year, it seems like there's a tide changing where it's gone from, hey, top kid, want to come run at the Festival of Miles, to the top kid being like, I want to go run at Festival of Miles. Is that a nice shift to see you guys doing a little bit less work now? And also, I mean, they're really fast kids that probably would have won the race a few years ago that won't even make the high school boys mile field because it's so stacked.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say it's less work. Still a lot of work, okay. But it is exciting to see. And, you know, it's hard because we try not to be competitive with these other races because, again, we want to support track and field. So the more races, the better. You know, we love that there's Brooks PR. We love that there's, you know, Nike Nationals, New Balance, and all those. So we just try to be really good at what we do. And so that niche. So we feel that word of mouth has really gone a long way in that. So these kids are talking like, hey, you can come to Festival of Miles. And, you know, we're on a Thursday night. So that is a little goofy, but we've thought about changing. There's no way to change it. We are Thursday night. So that can be a little hard. So we get that. So we're more grateful that they come. So, you know, it's like we're just excited for them. So we that's kind of how we see it. And the more that come, the better.
You're the president of this whole operation. I want to go back in time. Was there something in your history? Like, what's your relationship with running? How did you get in this position? You obviously took me through that year one and kind of the origin story of Festival of Miles, but where does Katie Sutton's story start in the sport of running, and how'd you get to this point?
It started in small town Missouri and being really bad at volleyball. So I grew up in a smaller town in middle of nowhere, Missouri, and we in my town, you didn't get to do school athletics till 8th grade. And so I did all sorts of little sports, but if you're a girl, you got to pick volleyball in the fall, basketball in the winter, and then track in the spring. And I tried volleyball and I was really bad. And I tried track and I was like, oh, well, this is pretty fun. And I became best friends with the track coach's daughter. And she had to go to the track after school because we had morning practice in junior high. And so I was like, well, I'll go with you. And then, well, I'm here, I might as well do a workout. So I kind of did 2-a-days, but I was a triple jumper, 4x1 girl, and 200 runner. So, and then I was like, well, I was bad at volleyball. I have friends. Why don't I try cross country? And turns out I was decent at it. So turns out I was halfway decent and loved it. Running was never a chore. So loved it, competed at TCU. So I'm a Texas Christian Horned Frog through and through. So ran collegiately there. And then afterwards, you know, after a little bit of a lull, I started running again. And that's when I met up with Ben Rosario and Matt Helbig, who is, Matt runs Big River Race Management here in St. Louis, and really got into that community and ran competitively post-collegiately. So yeah, that's kind of how it got started. And that's how I became friends with this really cool group of people who likes to do big, bold things in the running world. So it's, yeah. So that started out, and I wouldn't say I was part of the organizing committee when this started. I was definitely there. I went to all of them and I would help. And then about 2014, I became their photographer. So I was the main photographer at Festival of Miles. And after about a year, I told Carter Snow, who was in charge at that point, hey, I want to do a little more. So I joined the board and I did a lot of the stats. So I did a lot of the background stuff, finding which kids we were gonna try and get at the meet. I spent a lot of early Sunday mornings in the spring with a cup of coffee and mile split trying to find those best runners. And then when Carter was looking to step down, I thought, well, I think this is what I'm going to do. So, and I do not do it alone. We have a team of about 12 volunteers. We do have a race director, Tim Cornell, who is doing a great job. So if you email us, you're probably going to talk to Tim or Katie Helbig, our communication director. You might talk to me, but answering emails during the day with the full-time job doesn't always work. So, but I'm here. I'm working away. So.
I do want to dive more into that. I did get to experience kind of the operations of everything last year. And it was so cool to see how you guys operate with one another and really put on this grassroots event. What does your day-to-day look like? How much back and forth is it with Tim and Craig and the HOKA team? And when does the intensive really start? Is there a month that hits and you guys are like, okay, here we go again? What does it look like throughout the year?
I feel like it used to be January, but I feel like now it's year round. But January, when you start moving into those track seasons, you're starting to see the indoor times come. You got to start working on everything because we're in charge of the operations. We're in charge of the the recruiting side, but also hotels and all that. And then we work closely with HOKA and their team. So day to day now, if you can see the circles under my eyes, they start early. Usually wake up at 2 and panic about something, but it's just a lot of making sure we have everything in order. So making sure we have everything ordered. Have we talked to the right people? Do we have enough volunteers to fill the spots? And then communication with the athletes. We try very hard to have very clear communication. Something we pride ourselves on. So we try to make sure parents are informed, kids are informed, so that everything can run as smoothly as possible that day before the meet and the day of the meet. So it's really, I can't say enough to what HOKA does because, they show up with pallets and we have a beautiful track. So that helps a lot. But we have really good volunteers. We have 2 gals who have been I guess you'd call them our hospitality coordinators for years, and they schedule all airport pickups. I don't even have to worry about it because I know that Steph and Jamie have got it. And so if you've been a pro and run at Festival of Miles, you know Steph and Jamie because they've driven you around and made sure you got to where you're going to go. Our volunteer coordinator, don't even have to worry about it. I know she's going to have everything in order. So it's just a really great team.
Is there a specific year in mind that a horror story happened where a top athlete, they missed their flight or maybe a shipment of singlets didn't come in through or something at the venue? Any crazy stories you can share?
All I can say is one time we forgot to order the bibs, but we ordered them. They were just late and we were sweating because we don't have our final field until the Sunday before the event. Because because we don't choose we're able to confirm a lot of the kids that we know are going to make the meet. But if someone runs fast at their state meet, we don't know, they may make it. And so we don't have that final list until I guess it's Memorial Day weekend, so Sunday. So I think one time we forgot to order them, but we got them ordered. They came in. We've had some late nights where we've had to make a late night airport run or, make sure an athlete gets in. But in general, knock on wood, it's nothing we haven't been able to work through. Let's say that.
What's your dream scenario for this meet, for this event? Are there any ways in which you as the president want to build it out, or do you like kind of the capacity that it's at? Are there any things that you envision for the future years of building it out and taking it to the next level?
I don't think building it out per se, as in venue or building out with number of races, because part of the fun of our event is you stop one race, the next one's lining up. You don't get much of a break. I always want to increase quality, especially on the pro side. I want to make it to where pro athletes come and they're like, you know what? I need to get my USA's qualifier. I need to get my country's qualifier. I know Festival of Miles is just as good of a place as anywhere to go. I'd love to see, as these kids get faster, I'd love to see them go for these records. There's some high schoolers who compete for another nationality. So that's always fun to be like, oh, maybe we could have some random national record. But I want to keep it like that, keep quality high, and also keep fans entertained. And so the more we can do to do fan interactions, fan involvement, because the more people who come, the more money we raise for our athlete in need.
What excites you most about this year's edition?
Oh geez.
One thing.
It sounds strange, but I am really excited about the Missouri Miles because I'm also a track fan. I had a niece who ran, so some of these kids, especially the girls, I'm really a fan of the girls' side of the sport. If you can't tell, um, I've watched them run since they were in 8th grade. So to give them this chance to celebrate and be in HOKA gear and just race, doesn't matter what class you're in, just go at it. I'm really excited for that. The other is I really think we're going to see something special on this girls' side. I mean, the guys' race is going to be good, but this girls' race, we have, I was looking at our stats last night, and we have 10 high school girls who have run 7:4:40, sub 4:45.
Wow.
So that's 10. A lot of those have come in the last 2 years. So that just is like, what are we going to see this year? That's insane. I mean, that just is insanely fast. And I think about my high school times that were like decent back then. I wouldn't even make our meet. So I think we're going to see something special there. I'm really excited.
I don't think this is public, and I'm not sure if it will be by the time this episode comes out. So you let me know if you want me to cut this out of the podcast. This podcast should be out by the end of next week. A bird on the street told me that Sadie Engelhart is entered in the Pro Women's Mile.
And
Do you
it is
think-
true. It is.
How
Now that
excited are
you've
you
said
for
it,
that?
I can talk about it. I
Okay.
am so excited about having her here. You know, it hasn't worked out in the past to get her here, and just to see what she can do. And our pro field is looking so strong. I'm not sure if our pro fields are out either, but you know, Chrissy Gear is scheduled to run. She just ran 4:04
I know.
last weekend. So we're putting Sadie and all these girls in a great position to hit their goals, and that's what's really cool. So I'm so excited.
National record? Throw out a hot take. Yes or no? 4:31. She soloed it. I think
Maybe?
it's hard to say no, but the stars have to align. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to put that pressure on her. I'm just
Okay.
glad she's coming. Run fast. You know,
I'll put
run
the
hard,
pressure
turn
on her.
left.
I know Sadie personally. She comes on the podcast all the time. I mean, this is the opportunity to run fast. And it's funny because last year, it was 11 p.m. at night. I was with HOKA, the HOKA team, taking stuff down. And I told Craig, I said, you know, well, I was kind of hating on the guys class because I was like, I don't know who's coming next year. All the guys graduated. And I was like, next year, I think the girls' mile is going to be more of an event than the guys' side. And I said, you need to get Sadie. You need to get Sadie. And so it's so full circle to see that Sadie's coming to the meet. And again, she is so dang good at soloing these miles. I mean, she really runs a mile every week, it seems like. And to run 4:31 the way she did, I just get excited to hopefully see her on Chrissy Gear's hip, seeing how far she can make it. Whether that she goes out in 2:10 and blows up, who knows? But a show is going to happen regardless. And It's all about the excitement going into the event too. And I feel like this is what packs the seats, is seeing people like her race it.
Yeah, it's so exciting. It's so exciting.
You sound like you don't like to throw out hot takes, but okay, 4 guys broke 4 last year. Over, under, or same? I'll go over, under 3.
Oh, we'll go over. Why not?
Okay.
I've got nothing to lose. It's gonna be fun to watch.
Who's pacing the boys' high school mile? Big storyline last year was Eric Sawinski paced. Who's the pacer this year?
You know, I don't actually know. I know we have one, but I don't want to misspeak because I know who are lined up to be our pacers, but I don't know which one's doing which race. So I'm not going to say, just so I don't say the wrong thing.
Got it. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Speaking of the pacers, when you're watching these, real quick, do you watch these races, or are you in so operational mode that you're like running around and not able to watch?
I'm usually at the finish line. So that used to be the really good thing, is when I was a photographer, I had the best seat in the house. And so, but obviously I think I tried to do the photography one year while I was director, and it just, you can't do it. So I'm usually at the finish line. Like last year I was giving out flags. So, you know, I don't know if we started this last year and we're going to keep with it. If you win the Festival of Miles, you get a huge champion flag. Top 3 get these flags that they get to take home and hang wherever they want in their room. And so I was there doing that. So I'm there in the action, but obviously if there's some kind of emergency or something that has to be taken care of, then I do have to go address that. But for the most part, I'm down there at the finish line.
How busy is your phone the 24 hours leading up to the race?
You don't want to know. I mean, it's just a lot of, did we do that? Do we do that? Who's picking this up? What's going on? So, did everyone get in? Are there any emergencies? So, yeah.
On the
I take the
racing,
whole week off. I take the
yeah.
whole week off
Oh,
from
wow.
work. I was like, I don't even try.
From the racing perspective, do you ever get nervous about like Sawinski never messes it up, so he's not a good example. But in these like big time, everyone's watching. You ever worry for the pacer, like, oh, please don't screw this up. Please don't screw this up.
No, not really. I mean, I think they all do a pretty good job. And we use high schoolers for some of the meets. And like last year, I know there was one girl who they were kind of chomping at the bit, and it looked like the pacer may have gotten off. She was dead on. They just were trying to go too fast, and then they and then they slowed down a little bit. So no, our pacers know. I think the one thing I usually, and this is completely irrational, but I wake up sometimes, I'm like, no one's gonna come. I'm like, no one's going to come. Oh no, what if no one comes? And then, people are streaming in by the thousands. So
let's talk about the race of the night, the race of the year, every single year, the Mascot 400 race.
yes.
Take on this year, and what's the evolution of that? What year did that start?
I want to say it started around 2016. And we needed something fun to kind of break up the meet. And back in our early days, we had like sort of like corporate 4x1s, but they usually pulled a hamstring. So we decided to on that. And so we're like, what can we do? Let's just see what happens with the mascots. And it's a riot. I mean, it has become a point of pride. There is a traveling trophy that is a like wrestling belt. And so if you win, your school gets to keep the belt for the year. So last year, the Cupie won from Columbia Hickman, and it's a little creepy of a mascot, but it won. And so we will see. I think the favorites are back. Pete the Pioneer, he runs well every year. He was, I think, the first one to spike up. About 2 years in, we're like, wait, they have spikes on. They're taking this seriously. The Webster Grove Statesman, and then we usually have about 5 Eagles. And it's hard to keep track who is who, but there's usually about 5 Eagles. So we had a little bit of controversy one year where one of the mascots didn't wear their full costume. So you got to wear your full costume. So if your costume is less than others, you just lucked out. So
for those who are listening and want to support the meet and give back to it or donate to the cause of the athlete in need, where would you recommend people go to? Maybe give the list of scenarios. If you're in St. Louis, come out to the meet, what that looks like. If you can't, runner space, et cetera, et cetera. Walk the listener through how they can support the meet and also watch it if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are in St. Louis or you're traveling to St. Louis and you want to come, check out our website. You can buy your tickets there online. You can also buy them on site electronically. We have QR codes, so you can buy your ticket right there and come in. And again, $10 for adults, $5 for high school, and I don't know at what point it becomes free, but we try to keep it very affordable so that everyone can come. And then if you can't make it, you can watch it for free on Runner Space. So we don't charge for that. It's not behind a paywall. We just ask if you feel so compelled, please donate. And there is donation links on our website. And then we try to make that available through social media as well to make it easy to click on that and donate. And we really hope that we can give a nice amount to the family this year.
Okay, Katie, 2 final serious questions for you. My first one. Throughout your years of being the president and facilitating this event happening, what are some of the biggest learnings and lessons you've learned along the way?
I would say that it is important to give back to the sport. I don't really run much anymore as much as I, ran all my years, but this sport isn't going to grow and keep going without people giving back. And so this is my way. And this, I think, with our whole group, this is just something small we do, but volunteers are important. So thank your volunteers at any running event. It's going to take us all to grow this. And so I think that's the biggest lesson, that this isn't going to be easy. You're going to have late nights, but it's important because we love this sport.
Katie, final question. The question I ask every single guest on every single podcast. If you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you personally choose to make for him?
Can I bake?
Of course.
Okay. I have a great coffee cake that he would love, and I have a great chocolate chip cookie. That sounds classic. they're the
Hits the
best. So,
spot.
yep.
I love it. I love it. Katie, really appreciate you doing this episode. I can't wait to see the impact this one has. And more specifically, thank you for putting on truly my favorite track meet around the year. It was so fun to go last year and experience it. And that was also, I don't know if you know this, that was my first ever, like, I know you guys don't consider it a national meet, but like national caliber high school meet, as well as the first time I ever saw professional track. So it will forever hold
awesome.
a special place in my heart. I can't wait to be back. And again, thank you for the conversation and all you do to give back to the sport.
Well, thank you. And thank you for everything you do. We are really excited to have this platform, and we can't wait for May 30th.